Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk all things about how to get a career in data and analytics. And I will say, I transitioned into data sort of as a second career myself. I kind of fell into it by accident. As was mentioned, I come from nonprofit management, and maybe for those of you who come from that space, you might be familiar with the fact that there's not a lot of resources put towards working with data. And so you kind of had to do for yourself. And that's when I realized my great love of working with data. And then I sort of went into more the education side of working with data, teaching others to do it. And then most recently, my stint here at Datacamp. So today we're going to just sort of talk about the space, the introduction to what it means to have a career in data, the various types of roles, and what are good sort of transition points when you're coming from other fields. And then focusing on how Datacamp can help you achieve what those career goals are, whether you're still learning the tools of the trade, how to get certified for it so that you have some good validation of your abilities, and then what we provide in terms of career services and jobs. We actually have a job board and an employer matching system, all within Datacamp. And like I said, at the end, we'll have time for questions. So let's get started. I introduced myself already. I am Jen Bricker. You heard my bio. I do encourage you to find me on LinkedIn. It's just Brick. There's my handle there, Bricker Jennifer. I'm very easy to find. There's not many with my name out there on LinkedIn. So please connect with me. I'm happy to do what I can to stay connected. And if there's any networking opportunities that I can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's really a lot of what I do, is helping to draw people together. Looking at the sort of employment marketplace, it's actually kind of surprising because there is this huge gap of individuals who are data fluent, and yet the demand is only growing. And when you look at this at scale, you sort of have in the green all the sort of professionals who really don't know anything about working with data, and then there's the demand. So the demand for not only people who are data scientists at the far right, but also people who are just data fluent and know how to work with data regardless of their role, is still a huge demand, and there's a gap there. And so we're going to talk about how you can use tools like Datacamp to help you sort of close that gap and be ready, and put yourself sort of front of the line in this competitive marketplace. So as I mentioned, there is a real lack of data fluency skills throughout most organizations. And there's a real challenge in the labor market because a lot of people apply for data roles. It's kind of astounding. An open position for a data analyst might see somewhere in the range of 300 plus applications within the first 72 hours of it being open. That just means that the recruitment team has this impossible task of trying to sift through all these candidates and find what they think of as their ideal candidate. The problem is there's a lot of people who just apply who don't have the right skills and don't represent themselves well. And what we do here at Datacamp is really try to, within the data sphere, make sure you're representing yourself to the best of your ability and showcasing the skills that you have. So what we really try to do is bridge the gap for first learning the data skills that you need, whether it's for a variety of roles, making sure you can speak about them in a coherent manner, and then also providing the services that come along with not just learning, but applying and then going into the workspace in a way that's really engaging and affordable. One of the things I have linked here, just to get everyone started, regardless of what your career goals are, is a basic track of courses. It's a very simple track of courses. It's all theory-based, and it's just data skills for business. And I highlight this track in particular because maybe you don't want to be a data scientist, and that's totally okay. A lot of people work with data who are not data scientists. And sometimes you just want to make sure you're using the right terminology and have a good understanding so that you can work with data in whatever function you have. This track is a really solid foundation to get you started. And maybe you'll find you want to dig deeper and learn more of the technical side of things. And we can talk about that later on as well. But this track here that I have linked in the slide deck, which I'll make sure is shared with all of you, really is a great foundation just to understand the scope of working with data in business. I wanted to highlight just to scratch on the surface of the different types of data roles that exist out there. And I would say I have them broken into two sort of categories. The top line is what is typically considered analysts, and then the bottom line are sort of the more technical side of data science. They are a range of positions. And the real ironic thing is in the marketplace, if you look at job postings, they might have any number of titles that can be a combination of all of these. And it's not always as meaningful as keeping to that definition. So these definitions are just meant as a starting point. They're not necessarily written in stone because the marketplace is really variable. But just to highlight the differences here, you can start with like a business analyst role or a business intelligence analyst, and they're working with data. They're basically creating reports and sort of driving the actions. A data analyst is probably doing a little bit more of the gathering of the data, cleaning it, preparing it, as well as doing the analysis work. Now, these are all done usually with some tools. Not a ton of programming is necessary to do these roles. Usually it's things like Excel, SQL or SQL, depending on how you want to pronounce it, or some visualization tools like Tableau or Power BI, or there's lots of tools out there nowadays that help you with creating graphs. At the core of it, having really good SQL skills is nice to have for these positions because it lets you work with much larger data sets than Excel can handle. So I highly recommend thinking about learning SQL if you have an analyst in mind, or if you're transitioning into an analyst type position. SQL can definitely help you. Under each of these, I've sort of tagged a track of courses to get you started in learning for these particular roles. So that's why they all say track underneath them. The second tier are maybe a little bit more technical. So if you're really into coding and you want to sort of dig a little deeper into algorithms, I suggest looking at this bottom layer of jobs. So you have a data scientist position, which a full spectrum data scientist is probably doing everything from getting the data all the way through machine learning modeling and things like that. A data engineer, on the other hand, is really focused on the collection of data. So how do you build out your databases? What's the structure, the architecture for your data? Are you scraping data from other sources? All of this, it's really about, it's not working with the data, but preparing the data for others to work with. And then you have a bit more of a specialized role as a machine learning engineer. Sometimes it's called machine learning specialist. It could be machine learning ops, but there's a lot of variations on the title. But what that person is doing is basically fine-tuning models and really putting them into production. So a data scientist sort of does the statistics behind it, the algorithms behind it. But a machine learning engineer is really hyper-focused on machine learning models and really taking them to production and making sure that they work beautifully, in essence. They're not doing analysis in the same way as a data scientist. They're really just looking at the model production and accuracy. So this is just to highlight the sort of main functions that are pretty common, kind of bucketed together as data roles. And it's really important to think about the fact that there are lots of hybrids between all of these roles. They're not always defined with boundaries. There's usually a lot of overlap between these positions. If you're transitioning from another role, let's say you're coming from marketing or from finance, there's a lot of entry points that you can consider coming into these roles. You just have to do some self-reflection to see what aspects are you most interested in. Is it on the coding, the back-end side of it? Is it really working with the data to find insights and drive actions? Maybe you really just love the statistics and algorithms behind it, and you really want to hyper-focus on machine learning. A lot of people do. If you're coming from engineering, it's a really common entry point to come in through data engineering and then move into data science, because if you're already coding for production as a full stack engineer, data engineering is a very logical entry point. So there's a lot to consider. We can certainly go through some of the questions you might have to help you. I'm sorry. Pups are deciding to play right at this moment that I'm talking. So how do you actually get these skills? How do you know all the skills that you need to learn to do those roles? Datacamp can hopefully help you get there. We have a lot to offer to help you learn. What's really nice about Datacamp is it's very hands-on. You're really working with the tools, you're practicing with the tools, and you're always working within the code environment. So you're not just watching videos and taking your own notes, you're actually coding almost from minute one in all of the courses. So the way we break it down is you start off by, if you have some abilities, you can do an assessment to see what your starting point should be. It makes proposals of what courses you should learn. Then you can practice as you're learning through challenges that they have. And then you can apply it through workspace, where you basically have the opportunity to build your own notebooks and build your own projects and stuff. So it's really a full circle of learning that really is self-driven. You can go at your own pace. You don't have to stick to any particular timeline, but with some good suggestions on how to get you from point A to point B, regardless of what your point A is and what your point B will be. So it's really customizable to what your learning goals are. So just to break it down a little bit further, there's the assessments piece that I mentioned that you can, a lot of people like to start with them because maybe they've had a little bit of experience with SQL, let's say, and you want to see, well, do I really have to take beginner SQL? The basics. You probably can test out of it. So you'll do an assessment for SQL to see where you land on the scores, and it will make a recommendation of what courses to take. And that's the next part, is the courses. Courses are broken up into pretty digestible segments. Courses, typically, if you were to sit down and do it from start to finish, in about 4 hours. So it's really not an expensive time investment because it's broken into small chunks, which is really nice. And as I said, it's very hands-on. So you're learning the topic and applying it through questions and knowledge tests throughout the whole course. Then you have the practice. And what's nice is you can actually do this on your phone. There's a mobile app. A lot of people use it when they're commuting. If you're commuting, some people like me work from home still. But it's really fun because you can kind of make it into a game where you basically test yourself on a daily basis on the topics that you're most interested in. And they give you a list of 15 or so questions each day in a topic that you choose. And you test your knowledge. And then if you see that you're struggling, it can guide you back to refreshing your learning on the courses side. And then lastly is the apply piece. Like I said, we have projects that are templated out that help you sort of go from the knowledge of, what to do to the application piece. And so you get set up in notebooks and you're actually coding pretty much from start to finish with a basic problem you're trying to solve, but how you get to the end point is kind of up to you. There are varying degrees of difficulty, so you can start off with some of the more simple ones and get more complicated as you go. But it's really nice because you can kind of keep testing yourself in these different ways throughout your learning process. Now, maybe you feel like you're coming into this with a pretty solid foundation already, and you're not learning from scratch, but you still want to see how you can prove that you have the data skills necessary. And to do that, I would suggest looking at certifications. We have certifications for data scientists and data analysts at this point. Eventually, I think hopefully by the end of this year, there will be data engineering as well. But what's really nice about certification is that it's testing you to the skills that you need to get the job done. We actually started the process of building a certification by polling employers, by looking at job descriptions, and really look at what it takes to get the role accomplished as a data scientist or a data analyst. And so what we've really come up with is some really key insights that help inform the certification. First of all, a lot of companies are not so strict on whether you should learn Python or R when it comes to coding languages. A lot of people switch between the two depending on what they're working at. However, SQL is a very common theme for almost all data roles. And it's sort of looked at a little bit sometimes as sort of the stepchild of data science languages, but it's actually sort of the foundation that everyone has to work in SQL at some point in time. In fact, you can do SQL in Python and in R. It's really pretty essential tool because it helps you manipulate your data in really concrete ways in a pretty simple query. And then lastly, the other very strong common theme that we've heard from employers and that we test upon for certification is communication. Your ability to storytell is really essential for any data role because data is only as good as you're able to translate it to people who don't have technical skills. And so being able to tell the story and communicate your findings and the proposed actions is really essential. Datacamp offers some really good courses on how to do the storytelling aspects because it's not just the ability to code. It's actually a lot more. So especially for those of you who are transitioning from other careers into data, you may find that the communication piece actually comes most natural to you because you're used to working with multiple stakeholders and having to make reports to various individuals, adjusting the report as needed to the audiences. And then just to highlight again, there are tracks that go along with this. They match the tracks that I had in the initial section. But learning, they have very specific learning tracks if you're just starting from point zero, and SQL and data communications. These are really the sort of learning paths. We can get into more details when we do the coffee chat in a couple of weeks if you're interested in sort of finding out more how to dig into the details of learning this if you really are starting from zero. So one of the things that's really cool, and maybe I'm most proud of this because this is my area, but for anyone who goes through certification, we actually offer really great career services support. We have a number of workshops that you have the opportunity to join that are very specific to job hunting and sort of career building in data science or analytics. We also, you have the opportunity to meet one-on-one with myself or others in the career services team to help you with your specific strategies that maybe a workshop's not an appropriate environment to talk about. So really what's very cool about career services is that you can get as much out of it as you want, or you can skip over it if you don't want to do it. But I do hope you take advantage of things like career services, just because it's a really cool opportunity. It's just part of what Datacamp offers to those who've gone through certification. It's a great chance to network, to grow your network, to meet others in a similar space, and also help you very hands-on get to that career goal of getting a job in data, whether it's regardless of the title at that point. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention that also comes with your Datacamp access is Datacamp jobs. We really try hard at Datacamp to focus on the data world. So what we've done with Datacamp jobs is take these amazing job seekers like yourself who are looking for roles as data analysts and data scientists, and all the companies that are looking to fill their roles in data, having struggles with that, and trying to match the two up. So it takes two forms. So on the job seeker side, there is a job board. You can proactively go and apply to jobs that are on that board. It's curated for data analysts and data scientist positions, mostly in the entry level to low mid-level sort of career-wise. It's really intended for learners who make the transition from learning to doing. And so the jobs on the job board are really kind of ideal for candidates who go through certification, who don't necessarily have a history in data science, but are looking for a data role or transitioning into data from a different field. So hopefully you would find some great job opportunities there. On the other side, we also have what we call Datacamp Recruit, where companies can come to Datacamp, look at profiles of candidates who are on the jobs platform, and proactively reach out to candidates who fit their criteria of what they're looking for. So hopefully helping the employer fill their positions faster while matching them up with Datacamp learners who have great skills. So this is just a little snippet of what it looks like when you're looking at candidates. What's very cool is it's all interconnected. So any learning assessments that you've done are reflected in the jobs platform, so that you don't have to fill in that information. It's showing your dedicated sort of skills area. It's showing how you tested on assessments and compared to the general population, what percentile you're in. So it's really nice in validating your skills. If you are certified, you get the added bonus that you're always shown first. You have a special flag on your profile that says you're certified, and that's just an additional stamp of validation of your skills. Because we hear from companies, they want to make sure you know how to do the role. And if you've ever tried to apply for a job where you don't have that background in entry-level position, it's sometimes hard to prove you have the skills. And so we're trying to really put your skills out there in the forefront to make sure that you're reflected really positively to employers. Just to sort of recap how hopefully working with Datacamp can help you with your career goals. You can learn, you can get certified, you can go through career services, work with me, and then also hopefully find the job and get hired. It's really what our ultimate goal is, regardless of the specific data role you're looking for. It's more than just data science. There's so many opportunities to work with data that have a variety of titles. So I really encourage you to do the self-assessment, figure out what area of data you enjoy working with, and hopefully I can help you with that.